It's Down to Business with Jack Miller. Forget what they teach you in school. This is real life, not Wall Street, but Main Street. A real show on what's really involved with starting and running a business with all the ups and downs. Our guests will answer your questions and provide you with valuable information. Stay tuned and join in the conversation.
When the earth was created, the word came.
Wanda, we ready for our next guest? Our guest? Okay. Mr. Presser, are you on the phone?
I am. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Okay, everyone, I want to introduce you to, I'm super excited to have this guest on. His name is Hillel Presser. His website is assetprotectionattorneys.com. That's assetprotectionattorneys.com. Hillel, I want to give a little background. And I don't even know if you know this, but Hillel's former partner was a gentleman, and one of the greatest guys I've met by the name of Arnold Goldstein, who unfortunately passed away, I don't know, a couple years ago. In the 1980s, I think it was 88 or something like that, my business was struggling. It went through some ups and downs. And I went to, I don't know, Barnes & Nobles or one of the bookstores at the time, and I got a book called The Business Doctor, How to Turn Your Headaches Business into a Debt-Free Money Machine. And that's really what led me to Arnold Goldstein, what led me to Hillel Presser. I would encourage anyone to Google, and I would think you could get this book. This is a fantastic book for anyone who has a business. Hillel, I was Arnold's partner, and their firm focuses on asset protection. I've referred numerous people to their firm over the years as well. I'm a client, and they've been fantastic. So, Hillel, before I let you, I have so many questions for you because I don't want to say unfortunately, I deal with business people who are in trouble all their time, all their life, at the time when I deal with them. And they all say the same thing. I wish I would have had some asset protection. Hillel runs the company. They're a I shouldn't say company, law firm. They're a nationwide, and I think the foremost in the country, asset protection firm. You don't have to be big. You don't have to be, a billionaire to use them. You could be big, small, whatever to use them. Hillel is also an author. I have a bunch of his books on my bookshelf. I've actually forced my kids to read them. They're great books, and I'm super excited, Hillel, because I think people need you. So thank you very much for taking your time for your busy show and or your busy schedule for my show and being here today.
It's my absolute pleasure.
How's your day going? All right?
Everything's good. Can't complain.
Good. So what I see all the time, Hillel, is I deal with restructuring and turnarounds all the time. And my typical call, and this literally happens once a week, if not more, is somebody who's had a business for a long time and no fault of their own, they're in financial trouble. It could be because of a lawsuit, could be because of a partner dispute, it could be because their banks put them in default, even though they're paying their banks perfectly, and they're either losing everything or they're running the risk of everything. A lot of these guys have had a fortune in what I call protected assets, retirement accounts, and they've blown through them. So again, I am so passionate about this because I feel people's pains. So let's start out by maybe telling everyone a little bit about what asset protection is. And then if it's all right, we'll just keep it free flowing. And I just have a bunch of questions that I want to run by you.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of different definitions of asset protection, but kind of the legal or technical definition that I give of asset protection is the legal process of titling both your personal and business assets to put them beyond the reach of future potential threats and creditors. And essentially what we do as asset protection attorneys is we help our clients protect any asset they have from any financial threat. So while the majority of our clients might be business owners, doctors, professional athletes, really it's anybody who doesn't want to lose what they work so hard to obtain. It might be a school teacher who saved up for retirement, somebody who received money in an inheritance or a divorce, really anybody that doesn't want to lose any of their assets. And the type of assets we help them protect might be as simple as checking, savings, stocks, bonds, brokerage accounts, primary homes, rental or investment real estate, cars, boats, planes, but it might even be shares in a corporation or membership interest in an LLC. Could even be intellectual property like domains, trademarks, phone numbers, even future inheritances. So really anything of value. And we're helping protect it against any financial threat. And obviously in today's day and age, it's the land of the lawsuit. So whether it be a car accident, a slip and fall, etc. But again, it could be anything. It could be creditors, judgments, divorce, short sale or foreclosure deficiencies. So essentially what we want to do as asset protection attorneys is we want to make it so difficult, if not expensive and impossible to collect against you, that they don't want to sue you in the first place. We want to take our clients and make sure that they're not the low-hanging fruit.
Gotcha. I think it's important to stress that that as you go through life, a lot of unexpected things happen, and you could be, as strong as can be and do nothing wrong, but something will happen to you that puts you in a position where you could lose your assets. And in my book, and I want to ask you really when you think the time is for asset protection, because I learned that I think the time is when someone's just starting a business. Not if you have a young guy in his 20s and he's just starting an IT business, and then I think that's the time to start it, not when he's in his 40s and he's a millionaire already, because the sooner you start it, the better, even if you may not think it's appropriate, because you know what happens? You go through normal life, you forget about it, you get married, you sign debt documents, the banks have you by the you-know-what. So what's your feeling on when's the time to get it done?
Sure. Well, you brought up a couple good points, and just to start from the beginning, you're 100% correct in the sense that, nobody gets up in the morning and expects to be sued. We don't wake up and expect to get hit with a lawsuit, but, you might not even be a vulnerable spouse. Maybe you're not a doctor or a business owner. Maybe you're just taking care of the kids, but you can just as easily, get in a car accident taking the kids to soccer practice. On top of that, it might not even be that you do something. Liability can come from anywhere. Lawsuits have truly become the next biggest business. Why not find an attorney on any corner, hire them for free because it's a contingency fee basis, and sue? It costs you absolutely nothing to sue but maybe 20, 30 minutes of your time, and if you win, it's probably tax-free money, yet it costs the person you're suing tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend themselves. And what probably makes it the worst is it's one thing if we're responsible for our own actions, but, I had a client come into my office. His son was 16 years old. He was driving the father's car, and the son got in the accident. The son wasn't drinking. He wasn't speeding. It was just unfortunate, an accident. When they came in, the person that they hit already had over $1 million in medical bills. The father only had a couple $100,000 of insurance. So although the kid was driving, there's two people who could be sued. The driver, which was the kid, well, he doesn't have much, and the owner, which is the father. The father is going to be bankrupt because he only has a couple $100,000 of insurance, and he's going to be sued for well over $1 million, and that was just for the hospital bills, never mind you the pain and suffering. So it's one thing to take responsibility for your own actions, another thing when you're sued as a result of someone else when you didn't even do something. In regards to when you should start, you always want to be proactive, and you always want to put together some sort of asset protection plan as soon and as early as possible. And the reason I say that is that it's my belief that, the poor need asset protection way more than the wealthy. And, just take a regular example. Take the average person who might have saved up a couple $100,000 over their life to retire. Well, if they're sued for $1 million, there's no coming back. It's catastrophic. They're wiped out. They'll never return to wealth. Take one of my professional athletes who might sign a football contract, for $50 million. Well, if he's sued for $5 million, certainly he's not going to be happy, but he still has $45 million left. So my advice is start as early as possible. The less you have, the more you need the protection, obviously not to the same degree, but you want to start your asset protection plan when you start the business, not when you think you're successful or when you think you're wealthy, because I can guarantee you it'll be way too late and there'll be nothing you can do after the fact.
Got it. What doesn't I realize that for every person in every situation, it's different. But if you could give us some bullet points of what an asset protection plan looks like. In other words, I know there's protected and unprotected assets, there's homestead, there's equity stripping, but maybe give the listeners just some bullet points on what, when we say asset protection, what does that actually mean? What are they doing?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing to understand and realize is that anything that's in your personal name you can lose. So if you have a boat, a car, a plane, a piece of real estate, checking, savings, stock, bond, brokerage account, anything that's in your personal name, we call that exposed wealth, and you can lose it. And it's always my goal to try and get a client to have nothing in their personal name, because it's very simple. If you have something in your personal name, you can lose it. You know, I try and get my clients to stop worrying about ownership. Who cares about who owns something? I don't care who owns something. I just care of who gets, the benefit of that asset. In fact, I'd rather not own something, because if I own it, I can lose it. You know, you have a brokerage account with a couple $100,000 in your personal name. If somebody sues you because it's in your personal name, you can lose it. So there's a couple different strategies that you can put in place right away. You know, number one, transfer the asset to a protective entity. And there's tons of different types of protective entities, LLCs, limited partnerships, trusts, corporations, et cetera, et cetera. You know, instead of having a brokerage account in your personal name where if you're sued, you can lose it, why not put that brokerage account in a protective entity like a limited partnership? You know, just like you and I are different people with different social security numbers, if somebody sues you, they can't sue me and vice versa. Well, if somebody sues you, they can't go after your protective entity. In this case, the example is a limited partnership. You have a social security number, the limited partnership has a different tax ID, and the law looks at you as two separate individuals. No different than with real estate. If you have a piece of real estate in your personal name, there's a good chance you can lose it. Why not take the piece of real estate and put it in a protective entity like an LLC? And again, by having the brokerage account or real estate in your personal name, if you get sued, you can lose it. By taking the brokerage account or the real estate out of your personal name and into a protective entity like a limited partnership or an LLC, nobody can take it. So one strategy is just taking assets out of your name and putting them in a protective entity. A second strategy is to convert your assets into exempt assets. Every state has a different list of exempt assets, and exempt assets just mean what's protected by state law. So, for example, in Florida, your house is protected, life insurance is protected, annuities are protected, retirement accounts are protected. The state of Florida has given you all these great assets that happen to be protected by state law. So why not take the assets that are in your personal name that are unprotected and exposed and invest them in some sort of protective asset like a primary residence, life insurance, retirement accounts, annuities, etc. And if you don't live in Florida, no worries. If you go to our website, it's www.assetprotectionattorneys.com. And on the left-hand side, there's a tab called Financial Planning Exemptions. If you hit that, it'll give you a list of every single state, and just find whatever state you live in, click on it, and it'll show you what is protected in your state. A third and final strategy, just for today, and I'm trying to keep things short, is to protect with liens. Poverty is power. What's $1 million house worth if you owe $950,000? What's a $100,000 Mercedes worth if you owe $95,000? Find ways to put liens and mortgages and encumbrances on your property. When lawyers look you up, and they will, you don't want to look like a good candidate for a lawsuit. You might not want a mortgage on your house. Well, why not get a line of credit? It gets recorded and shows up as a mortgage, but you don't have to pay unless you pull it. If you're going to put money into your business for marketing or equipment or employees, why not file a lien or a UCC, a mortgage and encumbrance against your business? If your business fails, shouldn't you be the first creditor in line? So another strategy is to protect with liens. So just to recap, and again, we could talk for hours, anything in your personal name is exposed wealth, and if you're sued, you can lose it. You want absolutely nothing in your personal name. Strategy one, get it out of your personal name, put it in some sort of protective entity. Strategy number two, convert it to some sort of exempt asset that's protected by state law. And strategy number three is protect with liens.
They're all good stuff. I think it was, I forget who, but I remember reading on somewhere or watching one of these specials. I think it was Rockefeller said he wants to control everything but not have it in his name.
I always tell clients, own nothing, control everything.
Gotcha. Hillel, we have to take a break for the traffic and stuff like that. Will you stick around for the next set? I have a bunch more questions for you.
No problem.
Thank you. And stay with us, folks. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Here we go.
Welcome back, world. I appreciate you sticking with us for Hillel Presser. Hillel, I appreciate you staying with us. Again, super excited to have you here. Feel free to call in, listeners, at 305-541-2350. Check me out on Facebook at Jack Miller. It's Down to Business. I almost forgot my name there for a second. Check Hillel out at assetprotectionattorneys.com. I saw a great quote on one of Hillel's websites, and it said something like, for every 60 minutes you spend making money, you should spend 60 seconds thinking about how to protect it or save it. And it is true. Hillel, to follow up on a few of your points, I've seen when these lawyers go after people, they go after them in a merciless way. So sometimes it catches good, honest people off guard. I had a client a couple months ago, and I'll never forget the story. He was in the trucking business in North Jersey. It was him, his two sons, and the bank called their loan, even though they were paying it perfectly. The guy was about to lose everything. And I told him what I went through, and I told him, we talked and about engaging me and things like that. And he says, he said this, he told me, he goes, and this is exactly what he said. He said he did 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, and he goes, fighting with these banks and losing everything was 10 times worse. So if he would have been with you,
so terrible.
Yeah, but I deal with that all the time. So that's why I'm such a proponent of somebody using you. So I think everyone should use you.
I appreciate that.
No, I my pleasure. I can't even tell you how I believe it. And again, especially the people who are young and just starting business, because you start a business, you sign your name on the dotted line with some bank, you borrow money, you think everything's going to go great, you forget about it, and then all of a sudden there's a problem, and no one thinks there's going to be a problem, but there is. And they wound up, the banks have you by the you-know-what. The attorneys are merciless. They lose everything a lot of the times. But if they have good asset protection, they're saved. And I always tell people, a lot of people make the mistake, at least I see, they touch their unprotected assets. A lot of people, when business goes bad, the first thing they do is dip into the retirement accounts. So by the end, 2-3 years later, not only don't they have the business, they don't have the retirement accounts, and they're really up the creek without a paddle. So could we talk about if there's ever a time when it's too late? We know that it's clear the earlier you start, the better. But what does a guy do who's, I'm just going to say a mature guy, he has a business, he has some kind of problem. Is it too late where he can't do anything, or there are different things you can do at different stages of the game?
Yeah, so, if somebody's proactively protecting their assets, then we can legally and ethically protect all of their assets. So, for example, you have a client that's worth $1 million, and he has no lawsuits and no judgments. Well, we can legally and ethically protect the full $1 million. Take the same client who has $1 million, but he comes to us after he's been sued for $200,000. We can only legally and ethically protect $800,000. The difference, he's worth $1 million, he's being sued for $200,000, so we can only legally and ethically protect $800,000. If you try and protect more than the $800,000, it could be what's called a fraudulent transfer. And the legal definition of a fraudulent transfer is essentially when you have a present or potential creditor, you transfer assets out of your name for less than fair market value, and as a result, the creditor doesn't get paid. And obviously this is done with the intent to hinder, delay, or defraud a creditor. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't protect yourself after you've been sued. Like I said, if there's no lawsuits, no judgments, well, then you can legally and ethically protect everything you own. If there is a lawsuit, well, then you can only protect the amount that you're not being sued for. So in our example, client has $1 million. He's being sued for $200,000. He can legally and ethically protect $800,000. But the pretty cool thing here is that the creditor, as long as you're not talking bankruptcy, doesn't get to pick which which 800,000 you protect. So if you have a client who's worth $1 million and he's being sued for 200,000, if he's worth 800,000 in liquid assets and 200,000 in miscellaneous equipment, machinery, cars, etc., there's nothing that says he can't protect the 800,000 in liquid as long as he leaves, let's call it the $200,000 of crap exposed, excuse my language. So there are things you can do after you've been sued, but of course, never to the extent of what you can do proactively.
Gotcha. Okay, so the sooner the better, but never too late. Another kind of thing I want to talk about is, and maybe people don't consider it asset protection, but I think it's in the family of it, is when you're forming an LLC or a partnership, I'll just talk about an LLC where you have operating agreements. There's a difference between operating agreements, whether you use the canned kind that come off the internet or a lawyer, or you get a specific kind that you would use that protect the assets. Because I've seen cases and been involved with cases where the documentation in the partnership agreement or LLC operating agreements are more friendly to one party than another. So I think that's critical too. And I would encourage anybody who's forming an LLC for any purpose to give you a call. And I believe, and just correct me if I'm wrong, that I'm right on that, and you have different documents that are more protective than some of the others.
You're 100% correct. And, whenever you're forming any entity, whether it be an LLC, a limited partnership, et cetera, protection comes down to a couple different keys. Number one is what jurisdiction are you forming it in? For example, one state might have better asset protection laws than another state. And those laws can change potentially year by year. Because think about it. Whoever has the best asset protection laws probably gets the most companies registered, which means they make the most money. So what might be the best state or jurisdiction today might not be the best state or jurisdiction 5 years from now. But you're 100% correct that the absolute most important thing are the agreements. So if it's an LLC, we're talking the operating agreement. If it's a limited partnership, we're talking a partnership agreement. The courts rule and govern based on those internal contracts. And if that's the case, why not have an internal agreement or contract that has all the asset protection laws, everything that's going to be good for you in case you get sued, and all the anti-creditor clauses, everything that's going to be bad for a potential creditor if they try and come after you. So whenever forming a company, you want to look what jurisdiction are you setting it up in. Number two, you want to have, ironclad, bulletproof asset protection agreements. And number three, also privacy plays a large role. In a lot of companies and in a lot of jurisdictions, we can actually set it up so everything is private and it's not public record.
Yeah, along that note, I want to make clear that I don't think anything that any of us talking about is not disclosing information to the creditors. It's just making it hard for them to get and monetize.
Yeah, and, I tell every client that presume at some point they're going to have to disclose what they have, because if you lose a lawsuit and they sit you down for a deposition under oath or have you fill out a financial affidavit under oath and they ask you the questions, you must tell them the truth. You cannot perjure yourself. You always want to make sure everything you're doing is legal and ethical. So asset protection is certainly not about hiding or secrecy. It's about protection, and with a good asset protection plan, you should literally be able to tell a creditor everything you have and where it is. They just shouldn't be able to get to it. But with that being said, there's no reason why we need to volunteer information to the public, before you're getting sued or even while you're getting sued before there's a judgment against you. So while an asset protection plan certainly should not rely on privacy, I do think it's a big role that should play in your plan.
100% right. 100% right. I also caution people when they fill out loan applications, make sure you put certain disclosures in there. And I know Hillel can help you with that because you want to disclose everything. But there was a case a couple years ago where a guy gave a value on a piece of real estate and the size of his business. A bank made him a loan. Of course, it went south, and the bank sued him for fraud, misrepresentation. So you got to be careful with what you tell a bank and what you don't tell a bank and the proper disclosure on it.
Yeah, and it gets tough sometimes because a lot of times it's subjective, not objective. But I can't agree more. I mean, everything you do, you always want to make sure you're doing everything legally and ethically and always be on the up and up.
Yeah, on that, I just also have to caution people, and I promise I'm not getting a penny from Hillel, but I feel like I'm a commercial for him. If you Google asset protection, you could buy something on the internet for, I don't know, $99 that claim to be asset protection friendly, but I would caution you against that, and I would tell you you got to go with a real pro who knows what they're doing, who focuses on something, what they're doing. Even local attorneys who aren't experts in this can get you in trouble. So I would just caution everyone to go to somebody who knows what they're doing. If not, they're going to get themselves into real trouble.
And I'd just like to add to that, probably one of the biggest and most important things with asset protection is you shouldn't be looking for, a one-size-fits-all or any sort of cookie-cutter work. If someone's offering that to you, run the other way. Everybody's personal assets are different, everybody's business assets are different, and everybody's potential threats, creditors, and liabilities are different. So what might work for you might not work for me and vice versa. So you definitely, no matter who you use, make sure that you put together an individualized and customized and tailored plan that fits your specific needs.
I would encourage everyone to get Hillel's books because I think if they read through your books, they'll get good ideas because I know you offer offshore trust and there's all kinds of liabilities if you're a director of a public company. And like you say, one size doesn't fit all. But if you read some of these books that you and Arnold Goldstein put out, the reader will get a lot of really valuable information.
Yeah, our law firm, we have a nationwide practice. We do both domestic and international asset protection, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with international asset protection. There is something very wrong with setting up international entities and not reporting them to the government, the Treasury Department, the IRS. So, again, no matter what you're doing, always make sure it's legal and ethical. And, what I'd be happy to do, Jack, you've been a good friend, and anything certainly we can do to help out your listeners, if anybody goes to our website, it's www.assetprotectionattorneys.com. If they fill out to contact us, as long as they mention that they heard about us on your show, I will actually send them a complimentary copy of some of the latest books that I authored on asset protection. No charge, no shipping charge, no gimmicks. Just try and help educate the public.
I appreciate that. Hillel, let me ask you a question. Could you put a good word in with me for my wife? She made me lunch today, and I haven't told her I loved her yet today. Hopefully she's listening. So
Well, I hope she knows how lucky she is to have you. Very smart, caring, loving guy, and I can't say enough good things about you, Jack. You've been a good friend.
No, I'm just teasing you. She actually sent me a text this afternoon telling me how much she loves me. After we were watching some stupid show last night, and I asked her if she'd marry me after 29 years again. So she said yeah, but
I better ask my wife tonight.
I'm just teasing you. Hillel, what we have to go for another commercial in a minute. I know you're busy. If you had to give one piece of advice to people listening, to the general public, and keep in mind you're having people listening who are young college, who are just starting out, and you have people listening who are very mature, who are CEOs of public companies, who have big estates. But if you can kind of generalize it, other than go to your website and get information and call you, what would that be before we go?
First of all, understand that there is something that you can do. Whether you ultimately choose to do something or not is irrelevant, but understand proactively that there are steps you can take to protect yourself because you don't want to be saying, woulda, coulda, shoulda. After that, educate yourself. Whether you go to my website, whether you read my books, whether you read other people's books, but learn. Knowledge is power. I don't care if you never implement it. I don't care if you never do anything, but educate yourself. And probably the most important thing is inventory what you have. Sit down one day and make a list of every single asset you have, from the liquid assets to the real estate to the cars to the inheritances. What I find is when people come to my office, they have a lot more than they think they do. What about your phone number? If that started ringing to the competition, what's that worth? What about the domain names? What's that worth? What about the couple $100,000 or a couple $1 million inheritance you might get? So there's so many other assets that we just don't think about on a regular basis that have great value to us that we want to protect. So a lot of times people think they don't have enough to protect, but they always have more than they think they do.
Hillel, I really appreciate it. I want everyone to go to assetprotectionattorneys.com. Check Hillel out. I'm telling you, he's the man. If you want some interesting reading or if you're going on a cruise, go out and buy his books. Or he said he'll give you some of them for free and read them because you will learn so much by going to Hillel. I can't thank you enough. I personally thank you. You are the best, my friend. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and anything I can do to help, I'm here for you, and I hope it was educational, timely, and valuable.
As I say to my wife every night, it was good for me. I hope it was half as good for you.
Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, buddy. I'm telling you, everyone should be getting his books because it is a scary world, and these attorneys are really, I don't even know how to describe them when they go after you. They're just professional suers, and that's how they make their living. In the meanwhile, we go from Hillel Presser to my good friend Todd Cohen. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Jack. It's great to be back. Every day I wake up on this side of the grass is a good day, as they say, and, that was just a fantastic guest and a great dialogue that you guys had, and I hope all the listeners out there took something away from that can help them going forward. I certainly did, and thank you both for that.
I am really Hillel's a great guy. On top of being really knowing his stuff, I'll tell you, it's near and dear to me because I speak to people all the time who don't go through asset protection and need it, and they come out on the other side and they're in big trouble. So it's just critical. Did you have a nice week, Todd?
I have had a great week, although I have some sick children at home.
Nothing major, I hope.
No, nothing major, just enough to keep us up at night. My wife is a trooper. I'm trying to be, but...
It's not contagious, is it?
Probably.
A little bit. I'm a little bit of a germaphobe, so I no offense. I'm not shaking your hand.
I'm a lot of a germaphobe.
No tongue. I hear you.
Do not lick him.
I promise. Wait, Wanda, who did you say don't lick?
I just told him do not lick him. Whatever he does, don't lick you.
Thank you, Wanda. I
is
appreciate
the implication?
That advice.
You didn't say that about you. Is that the implication?
You know what?
I can't wait to be licked.
I came to the studio today hoping to lick Jack, and now my dreams are crushed. So thanks
time for
a
break.
All right. On that note,
do we need to take a break now? Oh, we really need to take. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to come back with Todd Cohen, Commercial Corner, and we are going to talk commercial real estate, my friends.
Don't turn that dial. We'll be right back.
Does your company need financing to help with cash flow? Geld Financial Corporation has been in business since 1989, knows the financing that businesses need to succeed in today's competitive environment. Geld offers a wide array of programs such as accounts receivable, factoring, asset-based lines of credit, commercial real estate purchase and refinance financing, and bridge loans. Call us right now at 561-221-0900 to learn if you qualify. Geld Financial understands that every business is in a unique situation which requires a unique solution. We pride ourselves in thinking outside the box to secure even the most difficult financing. Call us right now at 561-221-0900 or visit us at geltfinancial.com. That's geltfinancial.com.
Are you tired of dealing with invasive and unreliable banks or brokers who charge large amounts of upfront fees and never deliver on their promises? Geld Financial Corporation, in business since 1989, offers a stated income mortgage loan for non-owner occupied residential and commercial real estate investors for purchases, refinances, and yes, cash out refinances. Call Geld Financial at 561-221-0900. That's 561-221-0900. Our stated income loan program does not require tax returns. Due to the light documentation, we can offer quick closings and approvals usually within 1 day. This program is a 30-year term with no balloon payment with loans amounts from $100,000 all the way up to $5 million. Call Gelt at 561-221-0900 or visit us at geltfinancial.com.
Welcome back to It's Down to Business with Jack Miller.
Dun, 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 dun. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Todd and I are very excited to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm actually more excited because during the break, Wanda, this is to you, I got permission from my wife. I don't know what permission for. But she said, I have permission. By the way, she only gives me permission because she thinks that it's like such a crazy thing. You know what I mean? That I got permission. It's like permission to going to the moon. But no, I'm joking around. I'm madly in love with my wife. I just like to talk a lot.
All right. Welcome back to Commercial Corner. I'm excited.
Okay.
I have a new listing to talk about, and I love it. It's grocery anchored. It's in Pembroke Pines in Broward County. Just over $100 a foot. You can get a grocery anchored shopping center.
That seems like a reasonable price. How much is the rent per square foot?
I mean, it depends on the tenant, but they're averaging, somewhere in the 11 to 12 range in the center and netting just over 7.
It's funny. On the surface, I always look at one of the prerequisites is replacement value. So without knowing this center personally, I say $100 a foot. The replacement value has to be a lot more than that.
Absolutely.
So you're really buying this below the replacement value.
You also have a unique property. It's almost 3.5 acres, a great lot right on the street that looks like a supermarket lot. It's got rows and rows of parking, and you have the supermarket anchor, which the supermarket's doing fantastic here and is a draw for any tenant. So even if you lose a tenant, tenants want to be around a supermarket and get that pedestrian count, traffic count, whatever you want to call it, the draw of the anchor to bring them into their stores or whatever their business is.
What's the expected rate of return? This is my eyesight's so bad. This is roughly a 4.275 deal, and you need roughly $1.5 million to get involved. And what do you think if someone puts up the $1.5 million, their rate of return will be on that?
Well, look, I mean, conservatively, they're going to get somewhere between a 10 and a 15% rate of return, as long as they keep it leased, manage it, and do a good job. Just as the numbers lie right there and being conservative, it's looking like approximately 11.5% return.
Gotcha.
If you do some work, get a billboard, you're right off the turnpike, visible. So
someone can make some money on this. Hey, Wanda, could you put through the caller? I hear we got an old friend on the phone. Todd, we'll jump.
Hey, I'm on.
Hey, Dan, how are you, my friend?
First-time caller, long-time listener.
Everyone on the phone is Dan Cascal, the #1 real estate attorney in all of South Florida, a good friend, our guest last week. I was actually thinking about you, Dan. How were you? How was your week?
It was great. I'm only calling in. I heard, Todd, that your kids aren't feeling well, or at least one of them, and I wanted to wish them a get well.
Oh, well, that's really nice. It's good to hear your voice again, Dan. And I really appreciate the sentiments. And the truth is, my wife and I have not slept since they've been sick. So I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, well, it was a fun time last week. I wanted to call and check up and see how you gents were doing.
We're doing good. I can't complain. I had a crazy week. A week's a good week, but I think Todd did too. Todd's always smiling.
That's right. So look, I mean, we have a grocery anchored shopping center, a little over 40,000 feet in Broward County. You could put your money in this, or you could buy something like a Walgreens at a 5% yield. This one, you're going to come in at a 7% yield. It's got increases in every lease, at least 3.5%, most of them 4% annual increases. You have a grocery anchor, and you're buying the property at $100 a foot, whereas, something like a CVS would cost you $400 or $500 a foot. So,
and another thing I want to bring up, and this is really appropriate for Dan while he's on the phone, that if you don't have the capability to invest this much, but you have a little bit or something, you could put a partnership together
or a syndicate.
Same thing. In other words, if you have 5 friends who each have a couple $100,000, you put a deal together. You call Todd, you call Dan, and they'll draw up the paperwork, and the next thing you know, you have a partnership. And you got a good deal here.
That's right. A lot of people do that, and a lot of people get started in the real estate business doing something like that. Syndicating deals, I mean, if you become a lead syndicator and put groups together, not only can you get people, like you just mentioned, to own pieces of real estate deals, at lower levels than normally would be necessary, but you also can make money on your own doing the syndication and charging a small management fee or syndication fee in doing that. So it's a good business strategy down here if you're into real estate.
Todd, Dan, and Jack Syndications, Inc.,
There you go.
a Cayman Islands corporation.
That's right. We'll take it overseas. We'll bring in Hillel Presser. We'll put it all together.
Hey, as long as I can go to the Cayman Islands once in a while and, I don't know, do something there.
To make withdrawals from all the cash that...
I'll be happy. I don't care about that. I just want to stay on the beach and be left alone, or sit in my hotel room and be left alone. I'm fine with that.
Hey, Todd, I'm wondering, do you ever see like loans that are assumable?
Yeah, actually dealing with one right now.
Yeah, that makes the transaction so much easier for a
It
buyer
absolutely does. And sometimes, actually, even if there is a cost to that assumption, it's still worthwhile for the buyer to do that and go through that without having to deal with the whole rigmarole. Generally speaking, putting a new piece of financing on a property is going to cost you something anyway. So you really can do an arbitrage, talk about your time, talk about what's involved in the assumption process and versus what's involved in getting a whole new piece of financing for a property, and it might be totally worthwhile.
A lot of the CMBS deals, I think most of them, if not all of them, are assumable. We've been working on a lot of assumable deals where we're laying in a measure equity piece to it. So someone will assume, let's say, a $3 million loan, and it's a $5 million deal. We'll get them the second million as a preferred equity piece, then $1 million. Then they put $1 million down. Anyway, I was just giving the minute warning. Hey, Dan, you want to give your contact information again, because we got to cut this short. I feel
Sure. No, I was really calling to say hello, but as long as you asked, Dan Cascal, 561-237-6822 with Zach Sachs Kaplan. It was great talking to you guys.
Dan,
I hope we have a chance.
Dan, it's always good to say hello, but we have to be unabashed self-promoters, too. Todd, my man, you want to give your contact information?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Todd Cohen, Marcus and Millichap. My number is 786-522-7021. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great week.
And this is Jack Miller. Don't forget about me. Look me up, Jack Miller Down to Business on Facebook. I want everyone to have a super-duper week. Don't let the week get you down. Get the week up. And Wanda, you look very sexy today, and thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to tune in next Thursday at 3 o'clock on 880 The Biz. If you want to send in your questions, comments, or ideas for shows during the week, please email jackmiller@geltfinancial.com.